Hello, today is Friday, the last day for Unit 4. It's been a really interesting unit, pretty dark unit, pretty expansive in terms of the topics that we've discussed and the places that our conversations have been going. We've been talking a lot about like responsibility and social media treating us as like statistics and Google and living in the present and things like that, and a lot of interesting things. Shannon, I want to start off with your most recent contribution. You talked about stealing authorship and skewing narratives, and Rosa, you kind of touched upon this in your most recent post too, but particularly Shannon, when you were talking about like stealing authorship, it reminded me of way back in the day when MySpace was a thing, several years ago. There was a little debacle about this feature that MySpace had when it came to people's profiles, where you could post like a written text, sort of like a blog post you can think of, like just a post of a extended written text on your profile. And technically speaking, legally, MySpace owned that content. So it brought a lot of controversy to the platform. Like it seems like it was very new at the time, like, what, the social media platform owns what you post? Like, preposterous. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? And it's interesting in where we are now in terms of, social media. Like, social media is meant to, at least the way that it's sold to you, it's meant to be freeing, and it's meant to be a place for you to be expressive, and it's meant for you to connect with people that you sometimes wouldn't otherwise connect with. So it was interesting to, have that reminder from MySpace about how like they owned the content that you posted onto their social media platform. And I'm pretty sure that that's not the way it is now in terms of, like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. I don't think that they technically legally own the content that you're providing to their platform. But yeah, it reminded me of that sort of MySpace debacle. Like, what if a musician posts lyrics to their song on MySpace in the blog posts? Like, that makes it MySpace's content. And it was just a lot of like a really interesting legal conversations that led from that. So you sparked my memories a bit, Shannon. Moving on to Rosa and Buster's video contribution. Let's see. Wrote some notes on yours. What did you say? You remarked about how famous people aren't sharing photos that aren't technically theirs. I remember reading about that. I also don't remember what celebrity it was specifically, but they were using somebody else's photos and very heavily implied that they were their own. And I think that most of those images were like easily Google searchable. Like Google has this section where you can search purely for images, and those images feel like, it seems as if they're public images. Anybody can technically access them, sort of making them public information. But the people who posted those photos and created those photos, they are the owners of those photos, at least in a practical sense. But it's interesting, again, sort of like how MySpace and their legality worked with their social media platform. Like, legally, are those photos public because they're searchable on a cloud service? Let me think of an example. Personal example. This band I really like called Flyleaf. Look up Flyleaf, go to their Wikipedia page, and the photo that is on their Wikipedia page is a photo that I took from a concert that I attended of theirs. Granted, I posted that photo myself onto Wikipedia. I don't know the legality of it. Like, yes, I am the author of that photo, but because I made that photo, you know, I think the technical term is public access or something like that. Because I made that photo public, am I sort of giving up authorship in a way, you know, despite the fact that I took it and I posted it? Like, it's interesting. I don't know if it's any longer my photo because I made it public in that way. You know, like there are articles about that band that feature that photo that I took as, like, you know, the photo that they used to show who the band is. And it's just, it's interesting. I don't mind, you know, but it's just, you know, legally, who does that photo belong to now? Like, I'm curious. Um, let's see. Sarah, you talked about, again, you know, living in the moment, that quote that you brought up, and that led to a lot of interesting conversations too. But you talked briefly about filming concerts, and it reminded me of this artist that I went to see recently. Her name is Florence, Florence and the Machine. It's another really popular band. But during her performance, she paused, you know, between songs. And she, like, it's interesting. She has this big, giant, regal voice, but then when she speaks, it's, like, really soft and regal, and she's British, so she has an accent. And, like, she told us, the audience, okay, I'm gonna do something really controversial, and I'm gonna ask everybody to put their phones away. And it was, you know, sort of like a really loud, audible, like, yeah, like being in the moment and things like that. And she called out a friend of mine who was, you know, standing next to me, and she was like, I don't want anybody to, you know, be sneaky about it like you. And she called him out because he had been filming the whole concert on his phone, you know, and he wasn't present. He wasn't being in the moment, you know. He was just so fixated at capturing the moment so that he could share it with people. And it was interesting how it was really funny to watch my friend be called out by a famous musician so publicly. But at the same time, it's, you know, you have to wonder if all musicians feel that way, or if all artists feel that way. Like, you know, put your phones away, be in the moment. Like, does them having their phone out disable the ability for the artist to connect with them? You know, like, if the purpose for them being there in the first place is to have that connection with you and to be live with you and be, you know, in the moment with you, is having your phone off or your phone out keep you from connecting with them? I wonder, because, you know, again, everybody's different. Everybody has a different way of connecting with people. Everybody has a different way of connecting in general. So, like, what if, like, having your phone out during a concert, filming, taking photos or whatever, like, what if that is your way of showing appreciation in a modern sense, you know? Because, I mean, I too, of course, like, whenever I attend a concert or a show, I have my phone out for a bit. Like, again, I took that photo of Flyleaf that's on, you know, Wikipedia, and I take photos, of course, during the concert, but I'm also very particular about how much I have my phone out. And that's definitely, like, a learned behavior. Like, my first couple concerts, I was, you know, very sort of over the moon that this was even happening. So, like, I took as many photos as possible and stuff. And that, for me personally, like, looking back on it, sort of took me out of the moment. So I'll, you know, take a few photos, take a video or two here and there, but otherwise, you know, I'll have my phone out, or I'll have my phone put away, and I won't be using it, I won't be touching it. And this reminded me of, I think Rosa, you said it. What did you say? Younger people, Generation X, how they may not feel that sort of boundary you know, like how they're so, how they tend to overshare. You know, I can only think of like my younger brother as an example, but does he overshare? He's very much into like online gaming and, you know, Instagram, Snapchat, social media, all that stuff in a different sort of way than I was at his age, because, you know, being a high schooler now, like he is different than being a high schooler when I was in high school. You know, like for example, we weren't even allowed to have our phones out ever, period, in high school. But nowadays, it's just so commonplace for everybody to have a cell phone and that everybody use a cell phone for everything, that kids are allowed to have cell phones out in high school now, so long as it's, you know, applicable to whatever it is that they're doing. Or when they're at lunch break or, you know, breaks between classes, kids are able to have out their phones. The younger generation uses social media in such a different way than we do or we used to. Of course, that's all from speaking personally, you know, like there are times when my brother shares things that I wish he wouldn't share that are just like silly, but you know, like I just have to remember, you know, he's different. He's growing up differently than I did. Like oversharing, in my opinion, may not be oversharing in his opinion, you know. A lot of kids grow up feeling like they aren't being listened to, or they aren't being taken seriously, or their voice isn't heard, you know. So being on social media creates a voice that feels as if it resonates, because you're getting that visual confirmation of a like, or the visual confirmation of a share, or somebody commenting on it. You know, it's just very concrete verification that yes, you're being heard, and yes, you matter. And possibly that's why it's so much more, possibly that's why Generation X overshares so much, because social media is a way for them to be heard. You know, like when I was younger, I was a very shy kid. You know, I didn't feel, oh man, this is getting real personal. I was a very shy kid. You know, I didn't feel like my voice meant anything. I was very afraid of people speaking directly to me. And of course, this was, you know, I didn't have social media. I didn't have, you know, I had MySpace. I had a computer, of course, but I didn't really have a smartphone with apps and Instagram and Snapchat and all that stuff. So my method of communication and my methods of expressing myself were so limited, when I admittedly wish that I had more of a means to express myself and to get my thoughts out there, you know, especially being gay. As a kid, that wasn't ever something that I felt like I could share. You know, that wasn't something that I was able to express. You know, sometimes I wish that I was able to do that more. And if, you know, if I had Instagram as a kid, or if I had like Facebook or whatever as a kid, would I have been happier in that I would have been able to express myself more, and that I wouldn't have had to hide what it is that I felt, or if I was able to connect with people, you know, because that's another thing about social media, is that it enables you to connect with people that you wouldn't otherwise be able to connect with, you know. So being connected with like-minded people, I believe, would have been beneficial to me growing up. I didn't come out until I was 21, you know, that was 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I'm 25 now, about to be 26. But just having that suppression of such a core part of myself, you know, like such a you know, major part of who I am, not being able to express that and having to keep that close to myself, and withheld in myself, I can't help but wonder if it would have been different if I would have had that means of expression that Generation X has. You know, would I have been happier? Would I have been more comfortable in my own skin? You know? So, again, sorry guys for getting super personal, but it's just, I'm trying to think of the beneficial aspect of the cloud, you know, because this week has been so, you know, down in the dumps that, like, living in the moment, like Florence and the Machine wanted my friend to do, being able to express oneself, like I wish I could have expressed myself when I was younger, you know, like maybe these things are more important than what we grant them to be, you know? Like we have a lot to think about in terms of the cloud and in terms of, you know, the youth of our generation. Things are different now, you know? One can express oneself so much more freely and have that visual confirmation of somebody listening, you know? Like that's potentially a big deal, you know? So that kind of just ties into what I was saying before about, you know, being responsible not only for your own content but for other people's content, you know? Like if somebody's reaching out on social media due to reaching out from a negative place and seeking confirmation or seeking a validation, especially if it's somebody that you care about, you know, like you should show them support, you know, and then that support can go beyond the cloud and beyond the screen and beyond the camera, and you can engage with that person in real life, you know, and have a real life connection that goes beyond the cloud. So yeah, taking care of one another is important, and taking care of one another is possible through the cloud, despite how, you know, much negativity can stem from it. I hope that I, you know, brought up a good point in terms of like expression and what social media might mean for the younger generation, you know. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. Thanks for listening to me, you guys. Look forward to next week. What is our topic? Networked infrastructures. Shoot, I don't even really know what that means. Looking forward to figuring out what it does mean now. Bye, guys. See you later.